Opening scene. Dark room. The only light from a dimly glowing flip phone screen. The ringtone pierces the night. I jolted awake. My phone was ringing. Middle of the night. School night. I squinted at the screen. An unknown number. I hesitated, but something in me said, "Pick up." Hello? The voice on the other end was rushed, almost panicked. A voice I hadn't heard in years except in passing. Ben. Blair. People are coming. We need your help. I sat up straight. People? What people? Ben? What's going on? It's the middle of the night. Ben rattled off something about trouble in the city. Something about a fight. A warning. The details blurred together, but one thing was clear. They were on their way, and it wasn't going to end well. "Where are you?" I asked, already throwing off my covers. "Just outside of town, 10 minutes away," Ben said. I barely thought. Bad idea. Stupid idea. And I said the words anyway. "I'm on my way." I was pulling my clothes on, sneaking up the basement stairs, every creaking step like a gunshot in silence. Heart was pounding. Car keys. Door handle. Engine ignites. Tires on pavement. Darkness rushing past. As I drove, my mind raced. What the hell am I getting myself into? I pulled into the dark property. A farmhouse with its lights off, but off to the side, a barn glowed under a single street light. Shadows moved inside. I parked, took a deep breath, walked in. Ben met me at the entrance, his face tense. Scattered around him were familiar faces from school, and then a few I didn't recognize. One of them clenched a baseball bat, another a shotgun. My stomach dropped. "Ben, what is this?" Before he could answer, loud engines, tires screeching. We turned. 3 cars ripped up the road, neon lights glowing beneath them like something out of the Fast and the Furious. The doors flung open. 8 big guys stepped out, chains and lead pipes in their hands, moving toward us. 1 female. We were outnumbered. I swallowed hard and said, "This is real." I had a choice. Stand or run. I took a deep breath, wiped the rain off my face, and stepped forward into the light and into the rain. "Look," I said, voice steady, with my hands shaking. "I don't know what this is, but it's not happening tonight." They stared at me, cold, calculating, and somehow my words were working. I could feel it. The tension was shifting. Then, 2 figures bolted from the back of the barn, footsteps splashing through the mud, running. Shouts, movement. 3 of their guys took off after them into the dark fields. The barn was chaos. Everything was tipping. I glanced inside. Where was the shotgun? Where was the person with the shotgun? I turned to the girl near the barn. "Call 911 now." For a few more seconds, everything hung in the air, dangerous, teetering, ready to explode. I locked eyes with the leader. One last play. "Cops are coming," I told him. "Take your people and go. I promise you won't hear from these guys again." A long pause. Then, just like that, he nodded. They turned, piled into their cars, and roared away into the night. Silence. Ben and the others slowly drifted back into the barn. No one spoke at first, but just deep breaths. Finally, Ben looked at me. He says, "Get out of here, Blair." I say, "You sure?" He nodded. "As far as we're concerned, you were never here." And they all agreed. They said thank you. I got in my car and I drove home, the weight of the night pressing down on me, my hands still shaking from the wheel, my mind racing with one thought. What happened? Welcome to the 1000 podcast, a warrior's journey of faith, fighting, and lifelong learning. My name is Blair Perrin. I am your host. This is my pilot episode. And the question today is, how do you know when to walk away from a fight? So just talking about my podcast in general, what we're going to do is we're going to begin with a story most of the time and then get to the meat of the discussion and we'll close out. But today, the story that you just heard was absolutely a true story. This is something that happened to me while I was back in high school. Ben, we had met back in kindergarten or maybe first grade, and then we graduated together. He's no longer with us, not because of this situation, but he had passed away a few years ago. And I just got to say that sometimes people and situations make such an impact in your life, and Ben made a big impact in mine. He loved motocross, he loved fixing bikes, and he was a risk taker, but he was such a good friend. He was a friend of mine, and man, he was a friend to all. I just got to say that, if this gets out and the Bippis family hears about this story, just know that, man, he was so brave during that time. I'm glad that he did call me. And I'm glad that we made it out of this situation. We definitely needed each other in that moment. Bless you guys. Yeah, you guys will always be family. How do you know when to walk away from a fight? And would you have walked away from this fight? If you got that phone call in the morning, in the middle of the night, on a school night in high school, would you have gone? Especially when, like I had one good friend in that situation, but I really didn't know anyone else. So for me, it was kind of like a no-brainer. It was like I heard the call for help and I was immediately in my car going, and I really didn't know what was going to happen, and I thought, I thought this was just going to be another fight, another brawl. In the next episode, you'll hear a little bit more of some of the fights that I've been in, but with this situation, I did not know what was going down. I didn't know when I was walking into the barn that I'd be greeted by someone with a shotgun, someone with a baseball bat. I didn't know that when I would walk outside of the barn to be confronted by 8 giant dudes with pipes and chains and me with zero weapons at all. I didn't know what the result was gonna be. Thankfully, in that situation, I had de-escalated it. Any choice of words could have been wrong, and man, someone could have been killed that night. And the thing about the question, how do you know when to walk away from a fight, is my suggestion is always to walk away from a fight. Nowadays, you just don't know what people have in their pockets, whether it's a knife, whether it's a loaded gun. It's just better off not to be in those situations. And I think one of the key things that we have to deal with always, and maybe you feel rage and stuff while you're driving, maybe you have a little road rage. I used to, but one is we need to learn how to control our anxiety, our emotions, and our ego. We have to let those things go. You never know when someone cuts you off and you're having such a bad day, and you make that decision to get out of your car to confront a person, they step out of their car, and you don't know if that's going to be the last moment for one of you two. You don't know. You just never want to put yourself in that position. But there are times where you will have to step in. So there was one time, not too uh, not too far from this present moment. I think it was like a year or two, no, about 2 years ago. My my family, my wife and I, we were just coming home from an event, and as we were driving into our court, there was a high school. It looked like a high school kid. Um, he was, a little shorter than me, a little stockier, and he was there with his girlfriend. He was Him and his girlfriend were standing in the middle of the street and just, yeah, not moving. So I honked a little bit, and I didn't honk like loud or long or anything. It was just enough to be like, "Hey, just getting your attention. Please continue your walk." And you could see how he just like blew up. He was so mad. And I continued to drive, and I parked right in front of our house. I don't know if you should do that if you're ever in any situations, because you don't want them to know where you live, right? But I did. Um, he started walking quickly down the sidewalk to our vehicle. I could hear his girlfriend yelling at him saying, "Don't do it. Don't do anything." Which made my ears like perk up, and I was like, "Okay, what's about to go down? I have zero choice. I'm with my wife. I need to do something." And so here he comes. He's walking, and he gets behind my car. I'm already outside of the car. I believe my wife Cindy is still in the car. I'm sure I would have been like, "Hey, stay there." And so the moment that he comes up to me, you could see how much anger that he had. But for a moment, for a fleeting moment, you saw this puzzled look on his face when he saw my face. And he stopped. He like came to a halt, and he was like, "Hey, were you that guy who was praying for us out at the park?" And little did I know, I was the guy that was praying for him at the park. Him in a group of other teenagers. Um, I was out sharing my faith out out at Mountain View Park, not too far from where I lived. And that must have been, man, 6 months to a year, uh, maybe even 2 years uh, ago. And so for him to remember that, that was like definitely a God thing. Uh, you never know what you're gonna get. And that situation could have turned really bad. But sometimes you just don't have a choice. Sometimes you're gonna be with someone that needs your help, or your family member, or your kids, and you're gonna have to step in. My question for you is, are you prepared to do anything? Are you prepared to de-escalate a situation if you could? Or if you have no choice, would you be prepared to take on a person if they wanted to fight you? Or would you be able to disarm them if they had a weapon of some sort? I believe that every man and woman should train at some level. It doesn't have to be crazy, but just do some martial arts. I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I do Filipino martial arts. So that's grappling. That is being able to use defenses against a knife attack, knowing how to fight with a knife. Do I ever want to use those things? No, I never want to use those things. I train with a gun, and so all of those things I train just because, one, I love training. I just love to train. I think being prepared is cool, fun, awesome. But also, I don't want to ever have to be in a situation to use anything. That's not my heart. Let's let's keep going. So, how do you know when to walk away? I think that's a wishy washy answer. Sometimes you're going to have to, or sometimes you should, and sometimes you shouldn't. And so, it's going to be about you knowing the situation, knowing where things could go, and just being aware of people in general. And that just takes practice. Um, yeah, I guess that's that's pretty much my answer. So let's go on. Can we talk about let's talk about who I am. So my name is Blair. I am I'm an Asian from Iowa. I was born in the Philippines, in Olongapo, Philippines. I moved to Iowa when I was about, I don't know, 5 or something like that. I moved to the States when I was 4, so I must have been in Iowa when I was 5 or 6. And I was raised there. Raised different, and that's cool. I really love how I grew up. I met an amazing group of friends, and I have long lasting relationships with them still. I miss them. I don't get to go home enough to see family and friends. You know, living out here in Aurora, Colorado, and I think that building community is very helpful for knowing who you are and where you come from. Your group identity really tells a lot about you, the people that you hang around. And so, who I hung around were just really good people, people that cared for one another, that looked out for one another. And I think that that is never a bad thing to have. And so, if you're ever with a group, or your group of friends, or people that kind of tear you down, or keep you, that hold you back from living life or pursuing your dreams, you might not be with the right people. Let's get into behind the 1000. So in the beginning, I was sharing how this podcast is about faith, fighting, and lifelong learning. My take on all of this is that I want to begin sharing some of my experiences and stories with you. And I feel like it's going to resonate with a lot of people. I also want to I also want to have a little bit of fun, in a sense of I have some special episodes where the stories are going to be from like first person point of view, from different historical heroes and characters. Also, some fun characters like Prince Zuko, one of my favorite characters from Avatar Last Airbender. I would love to do a portrayal of him and his redemption story. Son Goku, who is an amazing warrior. That's going to be episode 5. And so I'm going to be releasing all these episodes, dropping them March 1st. And so if you're listening to me right now, it's probably all out. As so my hope is that I got all 5 episodes out. And if not, just know that my plan is to release an episode every week for the next 12 weeks. And after that, we're going to take a maybe a week break, just to take time to listen to the comments, listen to the community, see what you think about this podcast, where it's going. Do you want to join this community that I plan to build? And that takes me to behind the meaning of the 1000. So I have been using this nickname, Blair1000, and it's because I ended up getting this blessing. And just to sum it up, this is what happened. Deuteronomy 111, if you look it up, read it, it talks about a 1,000 times blessing. And while some people, they're like, oh, 1,000 times blessing, that is financial. Not necessarily. It's a blessing about multiplication, really. But this is what happened. This is a true story. This happened to me. I was in a church in Denver, Colorado, South Denver, Colorado, called Bridgeway Church. I was sitting during pre-service prayer where people are listening to God's voice, sharing amongst each other what they think He is saying, and then they take it into the service and sanctuary, and yeah, people just go to a place of worship. Well, in that pre-service prayer, one day, someone had handed me a check, and on that check, I read the amount, and the amount was $1,000. Hear me out. That wasn't the only thing. On the memo was Deuteronomy 111. Now, I had been praying prior to that service, and I felt like, one, God had given me he had placed it upon my heart, the numbers 111. And so learning what that meant for me, that took some time to decipher and ask questions and read the Bible. Um, and that was super important. So I also began seeing 111 everywhere. And it was like on my clock, it was on license plates and stuff. Like when you start seeing that number, or like we call them prophetic numbers. When you start seeing those things, they seem to keep to pop up often. If God is trying to get a hold of you to get your attention, he will show you again and again. And so that's where uh the 1,000 comes from, the 1,000 times blessing. Now, that check of 1,000, that wasn't the only time that happened. That happened multiple times over a 2-year span. A check would be written $1,000. I would get $1,000, and then in the memo it would be Deuteronomy 111. If that doesn't get your attention, that got, I don't know what could. God was getting my attention, and so that's where Blair 1000 comes from. That's where the 1000 podcast, the name, has been derived from. And yeah, that is that. Also, if you don't mind me having my notebook, this notebook is probably going to be with me for a long time. I am doing all my episodes. I like to write them in here. If you're not journaling yourself, I definitely encourage you to. Sometimes writing things down is helps solidify what you know and where you're going. And this is, this is the future of the 1000 podcast right here. So the categories that we are going to be talking about throughout these episodes are the faith, fighting, and lifelong learning. This is all to cater to a warrior's heart. And if you're like, man, I don't even know if I'm a warrior, can I just say this? Every day we have a choice. We have a choice to get after something. We have the choice to wake up. Um, and sometimes, people just need that one word of encouragement to get them through the day. I work as a security guard right now, uh, as as well as other things, but I work as a security guard at the Denver Arts Complex in downtown Denver. And among my colleagues, there have been a few that have, spoken with me, and they shared how they were their mindset is self-deleting. And I don't know if we can use that word in on YouTube right now, but yeah, they wanted to self-delete. And so, yeah, that's a big deal. It's a big deal that they even shared that with me. And so when someone does and they confide in me, my hope is that I'm able to release to them a word of encouragement that allows them to go after it one more day. And that's the basis of being a warrior. Sometimes, and we're going to get to some other stories in the future, coming up, these episodes that are coming up, showing that, warriors sometimes have bad days. Sometimes a warrior has to run away or has to hide. And that's okay. It's okay to have off days. But I want to give people a chance to thrive and not just survive. Um, when it comes to fighting, we're going to talk about those things. I am a martial artist. I've done a little karate. I wrestled for quite a while. I have done capoeira. I am doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Filipino martial arts, which includes knife fighting, bolos, which is like a sword, the combination of the two. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's see. When it comes to lifelong learning, I've done so many things in my life in this short amount of time that I've been here on Earth. I'm 37 years old now, and I can't even count how many different things that I've given a shot. When it comes to personal training, I was a personal trainer for 8 years. Still in love with fitness and health, and totally consume that all the time still. I was a massage therapist for 2 years to just get better at being able to help my clients, help them heal, help them grow. I thought it was important for me to know the human anatomy even deeper on just a different level. And also, I recently had to go vegan. So I've been vegan for over 300 days, my mom and I, for over 300 days, and it has helped reverse our arthritis. My mom has rheumatoid arthritis. She was diagnosed with that, and I had symptoms, in my joints, in my hands. My hands, when I woke up, like I couldn't even close my hand all the way. When I woke up in the morning, my hand would just be at this like right angle. That's as far as it could go, and it would take time for me, with over, like, and sometimes an hour or two for it to close all the way, and that sucked. But being a grappler, being in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, where we're tugging on joints and getting put into, pretzels and arm locks and chokes, wrist locks and stuff. Like, uh, I actually didn't know how long I would be able to do that, but I wanted to do, and I want to do that for the rest of my life. The thing about going vegan, it's not me being able to be like, hey, you know what? You should go vegan. That's not my message. My message is that we should work on our health, we should work on our bodies, and sometimes that means being able to take out foods that aren't serving you. And so maybe it is some kind of greens that aren't serving you. Maybe that it's like you have to go on a all meat diet, and that's okay too. Everyone is different. Like I found out all in one day. I'm like, man, I had to get rid of coffee. I couldn't have red wine. Like what the heck? I couldn't have red wine, and also I was getting inflamed because of eating oatmeal. Like, and we'll talk more about those things, that journey, in later episodes. Let's see here. We already are talking about racism and bullies. We'll get more into that. Being my experience as a Filipino American and overcoming fear, learning to adapt, and being able to start new things really well. I think that is one of the things that I'm pretty good at is starting things and overcoming those fears. And usually I try things because there's something in me that is like, that is scary. That is scary. And one of those things was like being a bartender, like not wanting to I'm pretty introvert, like it doesn't seem like it as I'm speaking to you right now, or when I'm with people. They don't think I'm introvert either, but I don't gain energy from being with people. I gain energy from being by myself and doing things that are creative or reflective. I Those are really important values to me. I didn't learn that until a later age, a later age. So in my 30s is probably when I became a lot more introverted. I also wanted to talk about, my faith. And so is this going to be a faith channel? No, this is not a faith channel necessarily, but I'm also not going to back away from sharing why I have faith in God. And I was a pastor for 5 years here in Denver, and I never planned to be a pastor. And in my family, we didn't grow up Christian. I met God outside of the church, and He brought me into the church to share my experiences with Him and to teach people. I was a pastor at a church that had, man, 300 to 500 people on a given Sunday, which is pretty big from where I come from. And that's not even a mega church, but I thought that was like a good, healthy amount of people that felt like if I could compare it to a river that was like flowing. It was like people were coming in, people were going out. It was a teaching, equipping church. And so there are definitely other churches where out there that are pretty stagnant and you're seeing the same people all the time. They don't have a flow of young blood coming into their church, and some churches are definitely dying out. And I think that has everything to do with like the teaching or the experiences of the pastor or the directions that they're getting. But I'm definitely not going to uh I'm not going to back down from sharing my faith a little bit, and and I'm going to talk about some of the good things that I experienced with church and some of the things that I think that could be improved, or some of the negatives too. I'm not afraid about sharing those things. I think we need to be open and honest. And to be honest, I think there are a lot of people, and maybe this is something you don't even want to admit, or maybe this is something that you even haven't even thought about, but like, is there more to life? Is there God? Is there a God that wants to have a relationship with you? Is He a loving God? Um, is the God that you pray for, does He answer prayers? Like, let's talk about it. Let's just talk about it with no pressure from you having to make any action to do anything. Let's just discuss. I think that's what I want this channel to be. I want to grow a community. Also, with that 1,000, I know we're backtracking here, but behind the 1,000, that's something that's important to my heart. That number, in a sense of, I don't care about this channel, this podcast going viral. I actually would really love to see a community of meaningful relationships that add up to 1,000. And I think that isn't too hard to ask for. I think that is a great amount where people can synergistically find a place to belong that you can call your tribe, in a sense of this is the people, the type of people that you want to belong with, who have a warrior mindset, that is not judgmental, that is okay with the journey that you're on, knowing that we all have a past and we all have a future. And sometimes we judge people upon where they're at presently, and you don't know how far they came from. You don't know where they were to get to this place. And some people, when they when they get to know me, they think my life is like all together. And I'm in progress, just like everybody else. I'm in progress, and so I have a past too. And man, if it wasn't for encountering God the way that I did, and we'll talk about that sometime in a later episode, but my life was going down the wrong way. I was about to do some bad things. And but now my life has definitely changed. So yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about like, does God heal? We're going to talk about the like exorcism in the church. We're going to talk about topics that are pretty interesting. And so there are also like spiritual warriors in the church, and yeah, we have a lot to talk about, guys. So faith, fighting, lifelong learning, those are the three kind of main topics that we're going to get into. What I like a lot about the lifelong learning is that we can get into a lot of different things on that. It's going to be pretty cool. Right now, with this podcast beginning, I am doing all the editing on my own. It's solo. If you're looking at this setup is super simple. It's super simple, and I want to keep it that way, especially for now. I do plan on having guests on the podcast. We're gonna begin with probably a virtual podcast. It'll be easier. It's not like I have a studio or anything like that. We'll have a virtual podcast. I actually have even talked to, like, we'll see when this happens or if this happens, but there was even a security guard that I worked with. He gave me the video of him. This happened like maybe a couple months ago, where he almost got stabbed. And he ended up getting a concussion, and I want to be able to, interview him and like review the footage. I would love, like, I've already convinced a lot of the security guards that I'm with to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And do I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Jiu-Jitsu in general is like the overall, like, you should just know this? Like, heck no. You should know a lot of different things, and everyone, when it comes to martial arts, you'll be able to create your own style, but it takes time to learn. And so, yeah, anyways, rabbit hole. Back on track. Yeah, plan on having guests. I hope to have even a private forum for my mom. And so my mom and I, being on a health journey, I want to give her an opportunity to be able to share her experiences with people. So we're looking at creating a private forum for Tribe 1000 is what we're calling it right now. So it might be on Facebook. We might even look into having a Discord. And so I think we will just take some time to see what you, our audience, would like to do. Oh snap. And like, if you've gotten to this point, I'm excited because I have put together some free resources. Like, so let's see here. This is important. I think I'm gonna put up a small ad for you right now. Here we go. Sorry to bother you, but I wanted to thank you so much for checking out the 1000 podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and would like to see more like this, please subscribe and comment below how this episode made you feel. But don't stop there. You're going to want to hit that notification button because we're just getting started here. And in the next few months, I plan to drop a new episode every week until we hit 12 episodes. And that will be season 1, where we will take a week off to stop and evaluate all of the feedback for this new podcast because your input matters. And just to show you my initial appreciation, I'm dropping freebie downloads that I've created to help you, my community, begin to find your purpose in this season. If you've been feeling stuck or just needed some encouragement or direction, Blair's Guide to Discover the Reason for Being, that's the title, and part 2 called Season for the Reason, both guides will be available today. Not only that, I have one more special gift, and it's a free guide to help us learn to protect our hearts or to guard our hearts. This is something I wish someone would have told me as a young man, also great for a young lady, everybody really, but now I am giving this knowledge away to you simply because I believe you matter and you should believe so too. Thank you. Let's get back to the episode. All right, welcome back. I hope you had a good opportunity to see what we are up to. And like my wife, I think we might be creating something pretty fresh together. We'll see in the future, but things are stirring. I want to also say, here's an opportunity for you to join the newsletter. If you haven't already, please, if this is down, if this is kind of something that you want to be part of, you're like, man, I am interested in learning more about this podcast, where it's going to go. I could use some encouragement every day. I need that warrior mindset. I want to begin my healing journey. I want to begin finding my purpose, my calling. I want to know what to do in the season of life that I'm in. Hey, those are some of the resources that we want to give out to you for free. I think that they are very valuable. I have the shield, being able to learn how to guard your heart and finding your tribe. Those things are really important to me. So I guess my suggestion is man, give us a like. Please comment below how the story even made you feel. And is this something that you would like to be part of? The newsletter, we're going to have a newsletter that's going to be coming out. We're making a way. And so we're just building these things up, and we get to build them together. Also, thank you for just your patience while I get better at speaking to a camera. This is not something that I do all the time. And I think speaking to the camera is almost harder. I think it's harder than speaking to a person, in, one-on-one, or I've spoken on stages where there are hundreds of people, and that's really scary. I have public speaking anxiety, but I those are one of the fears that I have overcome and am overcoming. And so, yeah, that's pretty cool. Who's my audience? Who's the audience that I'm trying to reach? And maybe you fall into one of these 5 categories. One is warriors at heart, people who are drawn to martial arts discipline, but not necessarily, but also maybe have the warrior mindset or would like to have the warrior mindset. You train physically or you're seeking inner strength. 2, seekers of purpose. If you're looking for guidance, motivation, and deeper meaning in your life, I think this podcast is going to be in your lane. 3, I just think it's going to happen. I think there are Christian men and leaders that may be interested in some biblical wisdom, leadership, and faith-based personal development. Like I like is this like I said, is this going to be a Christian based channel? No, but I am Christian, so I it's just going to come out. It's going to happen, you know? Um 4, story and history enthusiasts. If you love epic narratives, like the stories that I'm about to share with you, historical warriors, and powerful storytelling that reveal timeless lessons, that's what this channel is about. Uh, it's going to be so exciting to be able to share the portrayal of some goats in our lifetime, some modern warriors, some warriors of the past, maybe getting perspective of athletes. I would like to do a first person perspective of the warrior of the Philippines. His name was Lapu Lapu, who had defeated Magellan. Yeah, and then also Manny Pacquiao, who is a famous boxer. If you don't know him, look him up. Um, Number 5, podcast and content. If you enjoy thought-provoking discussion, self-improvement, and engaging storytelling on platforms like YouTube and Spotify are the platforms I'm gonna begin with. Um, and that is pretty much where we're going with this podcast. I hope if you've made it to this part so far, I hope this has at least enticed you to listen to the next episode. Then can I just read the list of episodes, possibly the list of episodes that we're gonna do here. So episode 1 was how do you know when to walk away from a fight? So that was episode 1. That's this one. Episode 2 is what turns an average person into a warrior. And so I'm going to be telling, some real stories of how I dealt with racism, and like what did I learn about that? How racism made me a resilient person. Episode 3, does backing down from a fight make you less of a man or woman, person? Episode 4, how do you handle stress when beep hits the fan? And so actually I'm going to be telling you a story on how I was part of a situation that saved a life while I was whitewater rafting at one time. Episode 5, I can't wait to do this episode. I think it's going to be super fun. If you are into fictional characters, if fictional characters have made an impact in your life, for me, one of those fictional characters is Goku of Dragon Ball Z, or Kakarot, if you know him by that name. But I'm going to be sharing stories from like his point of view, a little bit about his background. We're going to share a fight with Frieza, and we're going to take away some of the lessons you learn about just his life and how that it has impacted mine. And then maybe we can talk about how this story might have impacted you. And so yeah, we're gonna have some fun stuff. And with that all being said, we're gonna wrap this up. This is the 1000 podcast. This is Tribe 1000. You listening to this right now is no accident. Thank you so much for your love and support. If any of this resonates with you, I would just love it for you to just comment below. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to this. Hit that notification button. So you know when the next episode pops up. I plan on dropping episodes every week for the next um I don't know, until I get 12 episodes done. So every week until then, and then get a hold of being on our newsletter. Uh Thank you. Yeah, just thank you for beginning this journey with me, and share this with someone that you might think needs that warrior encouragement as well. All right, that's it. My name is Blair Perrin. This is the 1000 podcast. Peace out.